Hi, ladies. Today we're discussing the 6 signs that you have uterine prolapse.
And we are not making any diagnoses.
But we know how overwhelming and intimidating and terrifying this can be. If you're dealing with this stuff, you know something's not right with your body. And chances are that has not been validated by a medical professional. How do we know that? Because we've had the journey ourselves and walked hundreds of other women through it. It's a terrible injustice that's being done, but we've got a whole soapbox series on that called What Your OBGYN Isn't Telling You. Now, back to the point. What is prolapse? Just starting right there, the terminology can be so overwhelming, right?
It can be extremely confusing because sometimes physicians talk about it's a herniation of your vagina and leave it at that.
And some say pelvic organ prolapse. And some just say, well, you've got some prolapse. And
Others go a step further and tell you which organ it is. Like the last show we did on bladder prolapse, also called a cystocele or urethrocoele. Now we're talking about uterine prolapse. And then there's also this nuance of vaginal vault prolapse. If you had a hysterectomy, we're going to get into that a little bit more later. There's also in the back, which we'll talk about next, a rectocele in the back part of the pelvic bowl. And all of that is just prolapse. It doesn't even really matter if you know which one it is. If you've got the signs that we're going to talk about today, you probably have some of this going on, and it can get better without too much effort. That's the good news.
Yes.
Should we orient? Let's orient.
Yeah, let's focus on the uterus here. So we're going to show you 2 different
so this is
visuals.
what
What is happening in my body to cause the signs that we're going to be talking about? What does it feel like, and what is actually going on in there? So this is the normal situation going on. Red is bladder and urethra, that tube you pee out of. Yellow is what we're talking about today. The yellow is uterus and the vagina right here. That, the vaginal canal. This is what we're talking about today. This is normal. This is what Jen is living with. This is stage 2 prolapse of all 3 of the compartments, bladder, uterus, and rectum. So what we're talking about today is uterus. So here's yellow, propped up nice and high. There's uterus. And here it is when it has fallen. So all prolapse is a falling downward or into another spot it's not supposed to be of one of these organs. So here you can see uterus up nice and high, uterus falling down into the vaginal canal.
And it's worth saying that every type of prolapse is unique.
Different.
Yes.
Completely different. It's unique as your skin color and your hair. So this is another orientation piece. This is that 3-dimensional model of the pelvis with those organs in it. This would be sitting right here in my body. Here's pubic joint, that hard part right here.
Mm-hmm.
So what are we talking about here? These are the organs right nestled in the bowl of the pelvis, like we call it. Here's bladder. This is what we're talking about today, uterus. This is uterus right here, right in the middle. Bladder was right here. Uterus kind of sits a little bit on top of bladder. And here's the holes on the bottom. Just to review, this is urethra where the pee comes out. This is vagina where the baby comes out. And this is rectum back here. This is the orientation. This is what's going on, what's in your body, and what we're talking about today.
Thank you for that. We're going to discuss some signs that are specific to uterine prolapse. And I guess I'll start with a personal story in that oftentimes I have felt this, and I know we've had so many women tell us there's a drafty feeling down there. If you kind of squat down maybe to pick something up. Christina and I were talking about this before the show, and I remember distinctly after having my 3rd, not wanting to wear a dress because I wanted to have pants or something, a security of, because it felt so drafty down there. I was worried, quite honestly, that something was going to fall out, and it just felt scary to have a dress on.
It's an unnerving feeling.
Yes.
And if you have ever bent down or squatted down, and it just feels like the lips are just like they've spread open, it's like they unstick, and it's drafty is the best word to describe it. And it's almost like there's air getting in or something. It's chilly. It doesn't feel normal. It doesn't feel normal. And this because downward pressure. So it's almost like an inversion of the contents of the bowl, just like pushing down and out. And everything kind of spreads and separates.
And that brings us to one of the other symptoms, which is kind of your labia.
Mm-hmm.
Your labia are attached to your organs essentially up there by the connective tissue. And so when you have that falling down, maybe you've noticed that the labia are hanging lower, or maybe you notice, maybe you haven't looked down there, but you notice as you're menstruating that maybe if you wear a pad or a panty liner, you have chafing going on your labia.
Because they're kind of pressed down and out, almost a little inverted, and there's rubbing on tender tissue that's supposed to be kind of up and in there. And you get that chafing if you're wearing that pad or panty liner, and definitely that draftiness with the deep squatting. Now, those may not be, for some, the most bothersome issues. Like I said, every case of prolapse is different, and that means the way you feel it and the way you perceive it and what bothers you the most is going to be your own story. That's going to be not quite like anyone else's. For Jen and I, we were both particularly bothered by the pressure.
Yes.
And the heaviness, obviously the feeling of that you're in the end of a pregnancy, where it's just like there's a bowling ball. It feels like there's a bowling ball sitting in here just pressing and weighing down on all this.
And again, particularly during that time of your cycle, when your uterus doubles in size and it's heavier. So you're going to feel, typically around that time, more pressure down there.
Yeah, pressure and heaviness. And to me, this is a very uncomfortable feeling, as some women aren't bothered by that at all. Some are much more bothered by actually back pain.
Yeah.
This is another sign that you've probably potentially got some of this going, especially if you have some of the other things we've talked about in this show or the last one, plus the back tightness and discomfort or pressure or pulling. It's because the uterus is connected to the front of your tailbone via a ligament. So imagine if you've got that uterus is falling, it's down, it's pressing down, and it's connected to your tailbone. It's going to pull on your tailbone. And I could get on a really, really, really big soapbox right now about this. I am so sick of women being told prolapse doesn't hurt, or that your back pain is not connected to this at all. Yeah. That is the most absurd concept under the sun. If you've had a medical professional or anyone else tell you that, they are flat out wrong. You know it's connected. You know your body. It is connected. And the great news
is look at the anatomy to know that it's connected.
And but here's the good news. That's why you can fix all this stuff all at once with one answer.
Well, it's also why we research validated the back pain component with our protocol, because that's what women consistently told us over and over again. It's what we experienced is back pain is a big component of prolapse. And so many times it's whatever the thing is that's screaming at you the loudest. And, back pain can be not just from prolapse, it can be from obviously other orthopedic issues going on, but many women, through utilizing our protocol, are amazed at not waking up in the middle of the night because their back hurts, or being able to go back and do their exercise routine that they hadn't been able to do before. So yes, prolapse does hurt, and back pain is, we've proven that, I think, with our research, that back pain is definitely a component of prolapse.
And it's definitely a sign you might be dealing with some of this.
So let's go into the next one, which is pain with intimacy. And I think we should add to that queefing with intimacy. And you'll see why here, just as a reminder, you see that passageway, right, where when you're intimate, this is the passageway that the penis is going in and out of, okay? And you can see that it has...
And here it's nice and open and long. Open and long. And here, because uterus has fallen, it's short and it's also narrower. And so what happens is during that penetration, it's almost creating like this plunger suction effect, because there's not room in there. So not only is it kind of poking your insides in a more aggressive way, but it's also causing this weird like suction pressure situation. And I know you have described it as more like almost a soreness, like almost like cramping.
A soreness, and I would say like a higher up discomfort. So when we're not just talking about pain at insertion, we're actually talking about, because of that pressure differential, for me, the discomfort was actually higher up in my abdomen with intimacy.
Yeah, and it can be also soreness afterwards.
Post, yes.
Maybe everything was fine during, but then afterwards you almost feel like puffy or sore or swollen down there. Yet another sign you might be dealing with some of this stuff. And then another feeling that you've described specifically, right, is that feeling of like you've got like a tampon stuck in there. maybe it was inserted wrong.
I was going to say, or just pain with maybe you've tried to wear tampons after having your last child, and it's just really uncomfortable to wear a tampon. Again, you can see why it would be uncomfortable, because your passageway used to be much longer, and now you're literally running into other things. So it is not comfortable.
Maybe it feels like that tampon is stuck in there, it's in a weird spot, or it's just uncomfortable. It just doesn't work anymore.
So we're going to give you 2 solutions that you can begin using today. One is just simple diaphragmatic breath work. You can do this anywhere. You can do this sitting. You can do this while you're waiting in the carpool line, right? Just taking some deep breaths and really moving the ribs 3-dimensionally without accessory breathing.
Yeah. So we're keeping the breath out of here, shoulders back and down, and you're bringing the breath not only to the front of the ribs. You're not just doing, we're not doing that. We're bringing the breath to the side and back. There's, you put your hands here.
Yes.
Feel the ribs expand in that 3-dimensional way. And that actually really helps to balance the pressure in the whole abdomen and pelvic cavity. It's very powerful. The other thing is a phenomenally relaxing and powerful technique that we're sharing with you. Either the link in our bio on Instagram, or right below this video, you'll get the link to a decompression position. It is a powerful release for back, hips, and that whole pelvic bowl and cavity. And it also is an incredible cheat to turn off your fight or flight system. It's a physiologic off switch for that. And so you're going to get a big bang for your buck for getting in this position for 10 minutes in the comfort of your own home. Massive relief, really quick. Don't miss that.
The other thing that we want to talk about in this video is something called vaginal vault prolapse, which many women have really never been diagnosed with. But let me just say this to you. If you've had your uterus removed,
Hysterectomy,
you have vaginal vault prolapse. And doctors know this. Your surgeon who removed your uterus knows this, because that's why they ask you if you want your bladder tacked up, because they recognize that when you remove the uterus, the tissue here has nothing. The scaffolding, I love how Christina says that, is removed. And so all of this soft tissue comes down.
Yep.
And that's where that diaphragmatic breath work can also be incredibly helpful, because it's helping you manage some of that downward pressure.
Yep. And that's a big issue after hysterectomy. So if that's you, know you're not alone, and you might be dealing with any of these signs that we talked about in that scenario also.
And so what else could you do? Obviously, all of the red that Christina showed you, this is all pelvic floor musculature, all of that. And so by strengthening your undercarriage along with your abdominals, hip rotators, and back extensors, that's going to help you move better. It's going to help eliminate a lot of these symptoms. Might I dare say, for me, all except the pain with tampons. Okay.
Absolutely. And it has the power to, we've documented, reverse prolapse.
Yeah.
So if you really want to fix this without kegels, without inserting anything into your vagina whatsoever, without any disrobing, and with functional whole body movements in 10 minutes a day, our signature program has been research validated to do that. Get rid of the back and hip stuff, along with all the other intimate, disturbing, incredibly upsetting, life-altering issues.
Yeah, I mean, if this is keeping you from playing with your kids, from doing activities that you used to do, I know so many of the women that, you know, we have personally worked with, as well as myself, you know, loved hiking, loved playing tennis, going out and running in the park with your kids.
Yeah, or carrying them.
You can get back to those things. It is not too late. Just because these things are common does not mean that they are normal. And there is a really simple solution to eliminate.
And you have the power to change your story. And we are ready to help at tightenyourtinkler.com. You can hop into that program anytime.
And if you have questions regarding this, please feel free to reach out to us. You can reach out to us at hello@tightenyourtinkler.com or on any of the social media platforms. We're happy to answer your questions. Until next time.